Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Summers McKay.
And we are part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help us all get focused on what's going right in the world.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, watching your bird feeder-worthy podcast. Today is Thursday, the 20th of January, 2022. So Kristy and I decided that we don't want to be particularly interesting this morning.
Well, it's Thursday of a long week. We're getting tired. So let's just talk about what our stories are, Summers.
Okay, fine. I will go first. My headline reads, and I am on this beat this week. I am committed to this beat. Food scrap recycling, now the law in New York. So on Tuesday, I think I talked about fruit waste. And on Wednesday, I talked about smelling your milk. And on Thursday, I am talking about institutional food waste. Woohoo! According to estimates, the state of New York is responsible for about 7.8 billion pounds of food waste every year. That is equivalent in weight to over 17,000 statues of liberty. The state has recently joined the likes of California, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Vermont to require its largest generators of food waste to donate excess food or recycle food waste itself.
I think we had an article about a similar law that just took effect in California. So this law, which is the food donation and food scraps recycling law, took effect as of January 1st, similar to the California law, which also took effect in January of this year. And the New York law requires businesses and institutions that generate an average of 2 tons of food waste per week. So that's a lot of food waste, to donate the edible food and recycle any food scraps. So anything that's good enough to reuse, it has to be donated, and the rest of it needs to get recycled, given that they are located 25 miles from a facility that can process that food waste.
Interesting. So this is based on a notion of the food recovery hierarchy, and it can have multiple environmental, social, and economic benefits. The hierarchy prioritizes preventing food waste in the first place, right? Not overproduction, donating excess food to those who need it, and then it moves toward diverting food scraps to animal food, thus reducing environmental and economic cost of producing animal feed. And last, the focus shifts toward using food waste for fuel conversion or energy recovery, as well as composting. Final step in all of this, and least preferred option, is to send the waste to landfills or incinerators. I love this, Kristy, because once again, solutions aren't siloed. There's a whole chain of events between option one, toss it in the trash, or compost. I mean, there's so many things.
Absolutely. I think that using the food waste, certain parts of it, to convert into energy is really interesting. They do this like in dairy farms, convert the poop and other things into energy. But I'm sure food waste, isn't that Back to the Future?
Exactly. Well, a similar law in Vermont tripled food donations in the state from 2014 to 2017, painting a promising picture of the new legislation in New York. Additional food waste prevention and management laws are now also in progress in other states.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is actually a huge issue. And if you think about all of the impact to our landfills, and just by recapturing this food, which would otherwise just turn into, landfill waste.
Right.
It's so smart. And it'll cost some money to get it going. But once you get it going, it'll probably save money in the end through the energy recovery, through the other products that can come out of that, and also just helping people have food who need it, because the produce that gets thrown away is completely usable, right?
If institutions are taught this, if businesses are taught this, if there's an infrastructure and a supply chain around it, then that can translate into individuals being able to do the same, right? So if we have large businesses and large food waste producers making better choices, it makes it easier for people at home. When you and I used to do the Optimist Daily Update Challenge and we realized that we were driving ourselves crazy trying to implement all of the solutions, one of the key things that came out was, it's easier for the mom at home trying to not throw away food when there are infrastructure and systems to help her not do that.
Speaking of, that's a great segue into my headline. This talks about the rise in popularity of zero waste stores. Zero waste stores are refill stores. They're stores that specialize in products that have no packaging waste and are non-harmful to the environment. So think about the bulk bins in your grocery store. That could be, that's like a low waste or a zero waste idea. But there's actual stores now that are popping up that make that the center of their business model. Some examples are non-toxic glass cleaner or nuts, both of which you can fill into your own vessel. A wide variety of foods and household cleaning products can be found at many of these stores, and there's hope in the future that these will become mainstream checkout points in supermarkets all over the country, all over the planet. And this is definitely a consumer-driven trend, but it needs to catch on even more. Like we were saying, it's hard to do when you're just on your own, but if you know that there's a zero waste store in your neighborhood and you can go there, or if you know how to have glass containers to store things in or refillable containers so that you don't have to just throw away lots of plastic. So even before the pandemic, this trend was starting to gain popularity around the world. For example, big businesses were feeding employees with reusable containers, coffee shops banning single-use cups, but it's even taken off more now. Do you know of some good examples?
Some examples of these innovative businesses and their owners include Aubrey Thompson. She created multiple zero waste companies such as Re-Up Refill Shop in the Bay Area, Resourceful in Lafayette, and Fill Good in Berkeley, providing refills on household goods and personal care products, even ones that are hard to find anywhere else.
Yeah, and Nada is another savvy company based up in Vancouver that's trying to jump onto this trend. They pack groceries into upcycled containers, reusable jars, and compostable bags. It also has a delivery service using Shift Delivery, which is a carbon-free pedal bike delivery service. So it's not even using car deliveries.
And not even e-bikes.
Which is, get your exercise also. But why are these stores important? It's really just an answer to the rise of the plastic consumer. The United States is right now the world's biggest consumer of plastics. According to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, only 8.7% of that plastic is ever recycled. Most of the time it ends up in our landfills. And we're trapped in that cycle right now. The idea is to try to break away from that. And these kinds of stores are going back to the old times before plastic became the thing, before we were using plastic all the time. It's not bad.
When you smelled your milk to see if it was sour.
Exactly. Your milk, which was delivered from your milkman, and reusable glass bottles back to the factory. But this is a way to address climate change and ocean pollution. And it's vital to get rid of the single-use plastics from our daily lives. They've taken over, and we got to step back from that. And so having those non-renewable petroleum products, that's what plastic is made from right now in general, comes from fossil fuels. Instead, using different materials to create plastic and also getting it out of our first go-to in terms of how we package our materials.
It's like a food recovery hierarchy is now a packaging hierarchy, right? Exactly. There doesn't have to be on or off. It can be gradations and getting rid of as much waste as possible, and then finding ways to manage the waste that does come along the chain.
Right. New legislation is coming, like we just talked about, the one in New York for food waste. There's similar legislation trying to cut down on single-use plastics. We've written about France. We've written about California. And, there's things that we can all do to lower our plastic waste and our food waste. So this is just an interesting trend that we're watching.
So many interesting trends that we watch at the Optimist Daily. Sometimes you'll hear stories that reappear along the way, whether it's a Animal Crossing. We love Animal Crossings on the Optimist Daily, or some of the other headlines today. There is a headline that reads, "Keep back pain away with these spine strengthening exercises." For longtime listeners of this show, you may remember once Kristy and I tried to talk us through one of these articles, and it was about telling you how to do yoga on a podcast. We won't do that again. Virtual reality makes therapy more comfortable for 30% of people. Scientists invent the fastest DNA sequencing tool yet. And there is an ingredient linked to decreased risk of several causes of specific mortality. What else, Kristy?
Berlin is planning to have the world's largest car-free urban area in the world. We have 10 reasons to pick up a paintbrush, the plentiful benefits of painting. That's another story about a new craft you might want to take up this year. Sweden has launched a new agency dedicated to combating fake news. There's an ingenious solution that tackles food waste and food insecurity at once, perfect to pair with the food scrap recycling law in New York for this Thursday on the optimistdaily.com. That is it. And everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. We promise to keep sharing positive, solution-based news stories with ideas on how you can participate in the changing world to help ensure it's changed for the good. We promise to keep covering current events with accurate, legitimate sources and offering you the kinds of information we all need to chart new paths for all of us.
Everybody, please consider becoming an emissary on the optimistdaily.com, and for as little as $5 a month, support reader-funded independent journalism. Be part of the solution, changing consciousness and addressing our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. Help us keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can. We'll be back tomorrow with more solutions.